But there is other news going on outside of the NFL draft surrounding Tennessee. Of course, Tennessee safety Jacoby Thomas has entered the transfer portal. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, you mentioned MTSU earlier when you were talking about Reed Blankenship. And, of course, it has come back here in a way because he transferred to Tennessee from MTSU. And outside of Nico, this is not a loss that I'm happy about. No loss is good, obviously, in the transfer portal. Some guys you can just look at, though, and say, it's not that we're better off without you. We just kind of know that you're not going to see the field, and it's like we just shake our hands and move on. I don't feel that way with Jacoby Thomas. Jacoby Thomas was a guy that said he wanted to play at Tennessee. It was his dream to play at Tennessee, and he's just decided to leave because NIL valuations were just not good enough here at Tennessee. It's bizarre. It's really, really bizarre because, of course, he's an in-state kid. He's from Tullahoma, so this is very meaningful for him. And a guy that made all kinds of impact plays while he was here at Tennessee. He had that big hit in the Oklahoma game that was more or less Oklahoma's welcome to the SEC moment, if you will. And he made a lot of big-time plays like that, and then he had another one in the Bama game that was pretty big too. It's just bizarre to me that he's decided to move on in this quick of a period. He announced his intentions last week and officially entered right before the portal closed sometime today, reportedly between Florida State and Miami right now. That is the latest intel that On3 has there. I don't know what the draw is to Florida State. There have now been two guys from Tennessee, at least by my count, that have committed to Florida State this offseason. Those are Squirrel White and Jason Jenkins, the defensive lineman. What is so appealing about a team that went 2-10 and forgot how to play football last season? I really don't know. Miami, I get it a little bit. Miami's, depending on who you ask, it can be a really fun city. It's a program with a lot of history to it, and they're coming off a pretty nice season that they had with Cam Ward down there on South Beach. So maybe he's getting a good look from them. Apparently, they're talking at players all the time, it feels like, with Miami, because it sounded like Nico and Carson Beck were in mid-season negotiations with them, just from various rumblings that we've heard. But this one stinks. It really, really stinks. And I think overall, when you look at the defensive backfield, you're hoping Jermon McCoy is good to go. Jordan Thomas should be fine. Ricky Gibson has not entered the transfer portal, which is a good sign. That's good for Tennessee. A guy that showed some nice stuff last year. And you're hoping he can come into his own even more this season. And looking at the spring football roster, Andre Turrentine's still around too. So that's another guy you could have back there at safety. But you mentioned it earlier. Boo Carter wants to see the offensive side more. So you're going to have to plug some other guys in that nickel spot. And this does hurt your depth a little bit. You just got to hope some of these younger guys can step up and really fill those voids left for however long it is that Jermod is gone. And then, of course, Jacoby, because I thought Jacoby was a quality piece to this defense last year. It's really sad to see him go.
Yeah, I'm disappointed that he's gone for sure. With everything you mentioned, like McCoy's injury, just how so thin Tennessee is, the defensive backfield. It's concerning seeing him leave. I don't know what the appeal is to Florida State, like you mentioned. Maybe because they were so bad that they have a lot of opportunities to start on both sides of the ball. Maybe that's the case. I'm not sure, but it's definitely going to hurt losing Jacoby Thomas. Especially with the amount of safeties Tennessee's lost. But I was going to say something, but I forgot what it was, but maybe it'll come back to me. But yeah, Jacoby Thomas, very, disappointed in that. Oh, I remember what I was going to say. So not only is it disappointing because Tennessee really needs to get better at defending the pass this season, and now they're depleted a little bit, losing defensive back, especially Jacoby Thomas. But I lost it again.
Yeah. And, it didn't really, the flaw didn't really show last year. It didn't feel like until that Ohio State game, because really up until then, you just hadn't seen a receiving core that was three deep at wide receiver, honestly. The best receiver you saw in the regular season was Ryan Williams. And I'm not necessarily saying Tennessee locked up Ryan Williams, because he did have several catches in that game. He also had a ton of targets too. But it helps when you're only focusing on one guy as opposed to three, and one of which, as a freshman, should have been a first-round pick this year. I mean, honestly, with Jeremiah Smith, I don't know what the other rosters have just in terms of receiver talent in the SEC this year that Tennessee's going to have to go against. You would figure that some, like mainly Oklahoma and Mississippi State, will be improved at that position. So it's just really going to depend on what you're going against. And I already saw where Syracuse lost a guy to Penn State, Trevor Pena. So he's one that you don't have to worry about anymore. But you just got to figure some things out in the secondary this year. And I wasn't as worried about it last year. I kind of liked the uncertainty element of it, just because you didn't really succeed necessarily when you were stuck with that same group of guys that you held over from Pruitt, like Tamarion McDonald and Wesley Walker, all those guys, Danico Slaughter, Jalen McCullough. Like, it felt like they had a ceiling and they had hit it. You just needed to move on. And I felt like Tennessee improved there as a result this year. But you just got to stay healthy back there this year. That's the main thing. And you got to hope everybody's ready to go, because Jacoby Thomas going to the portal, that's a big blow to this room, I feel like.
And say Tennessee does have to rely heavier on someone like Boo Carter this season to fill the void. If he's not getting as many reps as he'd like on offense, what do you think about him staying with Tennessee? Do you think he jumps into the portal, or?
We just never know at this point. It's just such a mystery with these guys, because they'll say they love the place and then they'll just back out. Like, loyalty is not what it used to be for a lot of these guys anymore. It's insane how all that has changed. Which, speaking of loyalty, I did want to bring this up, because it transpired during our show last week, and it elevated even more when Arkansas announced that it would be suing to get back lost NIL funds that Madden Iamaleava had taken from it. Once he announced he was transferring out, I think that's the right decision, and you're going to need to see more collectives do this when kids transfer out, because you can't just show up, take your money, and then when you get a pay cut, just be like, oh, well, I'm going here now. I don't feel like that's a good strategy for anybody.
No. And do you think the reason why Tennessee is not trying to sue Nico is because he already fulfilled his contract? Because I don't know anything about his details.
Yeah, contracts are just we don't really know what the details are in these contracts right now. We do know that Jake Merklinger signed one today. I can tell you that. Have not looked at the financial agreement there, but it's just very ambiguous at this point. That's the word I'm looking for. We don't know what these things are. I guess I'm fine if Tennessee didn't pay Nico the extra money he was asking for, because he did fulfill his end of the bargain, I guess. Again, very ambiguous terminology we are using to describe these contracts, because simply put, we don't know much about them right now. But overall, yes, I think both Tennessee and Arkansas have made proper decisions. And it sounds like, too, Arkansas has hired I know they've hired Tom Mars, but for those of you who don't know, he is in the realm of sports law, that branch of legal stuff. That branch of law, and working as an attorney to represent some big time clients in these cases, and he does not lose he does not lose very often. So good luck to the Ian Maliava family. You're going to need it against Tom Mars.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah, it's still a crazy situation like going on with the Amalievas. Like I feel like we're not done with this story yet. And I think that this is going to be a big topic like going into the season. Like how is Nico going to play? Like what's the situation with Arkansas? How is that going to unfold? Is he going to have to pay back the money or not? If so, does he still have the money? Can he return it back? Like what comes to the situation with that? If Madden doesn't have, say he's already spent a chunk of the money and then he's owed, what was it, like 400, 500,000, I think they're asking for.
Yeah.
That's quite a bit of money for a college kid.
Yeah. And California taxes will chop that in half.
The California taxes too. And then it's not like that's going to get any better with him going to UCLA either. So I don't know what's going on. Like if he's going to have to pay out this money, he might have to take some out of whatever he's getting with UCLA. And then how much money is he making then at that point? And then like, if the rumors are true with the Malievas, if they really were seeking money, then they've done it in the worst way possible. And they've failed at that. If all of that ends up being the case, especially with Nico losing out as much money as he has. Cause I think it's rumored that like after taxes, he'll be making somewhere like between 800 to 900K.
Yeah.
Or something like that. When he was making allegedly like 2.4 million at Tennessee. I mean, it really seems like a whole bunch of bad moves after another.
Yeah. So as we wrap up the show here, there is one more thing that I would like to address, and it is the lack of activity from Tennessee in the transfer portal right now, because I don't know if it's a problem. I don't know if this is what Josh Heupel planned to do the entire time. But other than having a few visitors in, you've not seen anybody commit in positions where you at least appear to be needy. Just looking right now, some targets that committed elsewhere. Trayshawn Hurry was one that committed, I think, pretty soon after we mentioned his name on the show last week. He was from San Jose State, committed to Louisville. And then more recently, Keelan Marion, the guy that we were really looking at, he goes from BYU to Miami, who I don't know what kind of money they got down there at Miami, because they're in all kinds of battles with Tennessee, it feels like, for Tennessee's own players.
And they win. They win. They
win a long time.
Took Barron. They took, what's his name? Maui Goa.
Yep. Francis Mauigoa. Yeah. It's, I don't know what kind of money they're handing out down there, but fine, win your ACC titles and lose and like the
in front of 2,000 people.
Yeah, I don't know. That's what they're doing down there in Miami. But yeah, they haven't landed very many players out of the transfer portal. Any players, actually, to be more specific, in this spring window. And at wide receiver, I'm aware that they have some good young players like Rodarius Jackson from the Memphis area. He was really good in the spring game. I like what we saw there. Travis Smith Jr. is another big name that's been floated around. Maybe it's just the fact that they want to play some of these younger kids sooner, but it's just, I don't know. It's just kind of funny to see them not really attack the transfer portal. And I know that's bothered some people just from reading some things on the internet. Does it bother you, Jordan, at all that they're not really reaching into that transfer portal?
It's concerning for me because I'm really shocked that we did not take we took Jefferson from Alabama, but outside of that, like, we really haven't been targeting receivers when we only had 3 scholarship people remaining to begin with. So like, I'm concerned seeing it on paper, but I like to think that I trust Josh Heupel enough to figure everything out. I feel like with how they were just passive in the transfer portal, it makes me think that he's got something cooked up his sleeve that we just don't know about. Maybe he really likes these freshmen receivers, and maybe he likes the guys that he has and doesn't feel like he needs to go out and spend money on some other big name person coming out of the portal. So, I mean, it's concerning to see that, but it also reassuring to me at the same time, because I look at that as confidence from Josh Heupel. And of course, I don't know what's going on in the locker room and behind closed doors, but I went from being concerned to more so interested.
Yeah. I'm not going to pretend to be on either side just yet. I don't know if this is a statement that the staff is trying to make by saying we're tired of busts in the portal. We're going to try and just promote some of these younger players.
But have they had
and
busts in the portal though?
yeah, they
Like
haven't really.
like McCoy's like panned out. Norman Lott just got
Yeah,
drafted and everything. I mean,
both McCoys panned out. Now that you say it,
yeah. And then I mean, I guess Pruitt was the one that got Hendon Hooker into there, wasn't it?
yeah. And we don't.
But
A lot of these guys we still don't know. Like Lance Hurd could make a big jump this year. Chris Brazel, another guy that can make a big jump. There's just different kinds of possibilities there, and we just don't know yet. Obviously, a couple new offensive linemen that I think people are really interested to watch this season and see how they really gel with the rest of the group. But I'm not gonna sound the alarm just yet. I know a lot of people already have, but I and this is a theory that I've had for a while. I just wonder at what point college football coaches will say, you know what, the transfer portal is just not it's not benefiting us the way we would like, I guess is the best way to put it. Because I'll say this, the guys that Tennessee has gotten out of the portal, with the exception of one or two, they've been fine players while they were here. They're not guys that you will, buy a poster of and hang it on your wall and look at that as a worthy keepsake in like 20 years. That's just not at all how I see most of these guys, with the exception of one. We all know who that one is. It's just, I don't know. It's not mediocrity necessarily, but it's not pumping out a lot of talent that is just you're just really, really desperate to see Tennessee land all these guys. It's just, I don't know. It's not worked the way that maybe some of these coaches and programs would have liked.
I will say, on the bright side of Tennessee not targeting any more receivers, look at Tennessee's like receiving history. I mean, I've been watching Tennessee pretty much every game since 2009. I can't recall a time where Tennessee's not at least had a couple of good receivers. Like even during the times when Tennessee was missing bowl games and everything like that, Tennessee's always found a way to at least have a couple of guys go out there and make some catches. So, I mean, if history repeats itself, I think Tennessee will be fine. I think it was important that Josh Heupel really targeted the offensive line because that's what I was concerned with the most heading into the season. And I thought that was an issue with Nico last year and why he didn't. I mean, he didn't do bad, but I mean, people were talking about him being top five. Like all the Vegas odds had him as like top five for the Heisman Trophy, and then who's to say he couldn't have actually lived up to that if he had the blocking that he needed to? So I think offensive line was one of our Tennessee's greatest areas of need, and I think that Tennessee got some good guys with that. The receivers, I'm just going to trust in Josh Heupel for the meantime and just assume that Tennessee will at least have a couple of good receivers like they seemingly always do. I mean, even Josh Palmer, I mean, he was a pleasant surprise a couple of years back. I don't know if many people had high expectations for him, and then he came out of nowhere.
Still making it in the NFL.
In the NFL too, yeah.
Had a very nice I thought he was probably underutilized here. Another one of those guys that you just didn't get the full potential out of. Like, he was nice here when they were targeting him, it felt like. Made a good play every now and again, and he's become a nice depth piece in the NFL at the very least. Might do more than that with the Bills next year. We'll see. But yeah, like you mentioned, even in some of those bad years, like Marquez North is a name that comes to mind. Very nice receiver that just happened to play for some pretty not great teams while he was here at Tennessee.
And then Josh Malone too. I mean, Tennessee was iffy during those times.
And neither of those guys really made it in the NFL, but even when they were here, they were more pleasant on some of the most unpleasant teams in program history.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm just going to go ahead and assume that Tennessee will probably be fine from the wide receiver position, but it is interesting that they didn't make it more of an effort. But yeah, is there
Yeah,
anything else that you wanted to talk about on here before we get
that's
off?
about all. That's about all I have this week. Just thinking about some of the just some of the players that Tennessee needed to get out of the portal. Like receiver and DB really seem like the two areas at this point Tennessee needs to be targeting. Obviously, Joey Aguilar was your need addressed at quarterback, and I've been looking at the highlights, and I've come to the conclusion that I just won't know until he plays SEC football regularly what to think of him, because a lot of it is against Troy and Arkansas State down there in the Sun Belt. You're not going to know until he plays good competition regularly, and then outside of that, like there's not much else that Tennessee really needs to address out of the portal.
Yeah, I would say like got the quarterback, defensive backs. That's something Tennessee probably could have gotten more of. But I mean, we'll just have to wait and see how the season goes out. It'll be interesting to see how the quarterback situation goes for sure. Um, and then I don't know. I think this will be an interesting season for Tennessee, and it will be a telltale sign to see how like Josh Heupel is with like such a because this is probably like Heupel's most depleted team. I would have to say. So it'd be interesting to see how he responds during the season, and if Tennessee can like like win like 8 to 9 games, I would say that that was a successful season,
Yeah.
considering everything that's